Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Young Musician's Guide podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Campbell, and today we have Miss catherinebkelly. She is a vocalist in the Carolinas. She is currently teaching, playing a little bit of strings, singing, doing a bunch of these things, and that was what our conversation was about, is kind of what's going on in this portfolio career of ours where we don't just do one thing, but how do we make all these extra other things happen when it's just us as our bosses. Catherine was also nice enough to share with us a recording of her singing Once I Thought from Aaron Copland's The Tenderland. That's going to be at the very end of the podcast, so make sure you stay tuned for that. I will also be providing links so you can go and find her on all of her social medias. She's got an Instagram and a Facebook artist page, so make sure you go and check those out as well. Just want to remind you before we get going that if you like this podcast, if you find it helpful, please give it a like, give it a review in the iTunes store. Anything that you can do to help boost it, give it a like. Also subscribe to the YouTube page, but also sharing with anybody that you think might also find this useful. And if you have a couple dollars, don't forget that you can help us out monetarily and help me with the overhead and keeping this thing running by going over to the Patreon, which is linked down below, and pledging a little bit of money. A little bit of your money helps us do a lot more. So please consider becoming a patron at Patreon. And I also do want to remind you that if you have any projects or anything going on out there in the community, please let us know. Reach out to me. All of my social media is down below, and I'm very responsive in all of that. If you have a project that's happening that you want this podcast community to know about, reach out to me. Let me know about it. And if it's something I think is worthwhile, we'll let everybody hear about it. But yeah, that's it. Short intro this time. Let's get on with it. This is a conversation we had with vocalist catherinebkelly.
The acidity isn't necessarily great for your voice, but I drink coffee every day. So, I mean, it's fine. It's not going to, tear your voice up or anything.
You have to survive.
I know. Absolutely. And also, coffee is just great. So,
any big plans this weekend, or are you off?
I am pretty much off this weekend. I'm kind of taking it easy just because, I'm still in the tail end of this cold that I had, but just relaxing. I hit snooze way too many times this morning.
Awesome.
What about you?
I am off today.
Good.
So outside of this is the only thing I'm doing. I'm going to edit next week's, and then hopefully I'm going to shoot a YouTube video. And I'm going to clean my kitchen, and those are the plans for today. Hopefully finish my book that I'm in the middle of.
Sounds like a perfect Saturday.
Trying, I'm sure my girlfriend will find ways to screw it up for me, like she tends to do. I just realized actually doing the schedule today, and this is not a problem. It might be in Trump's America, but I have the first episode was Tyler, so it was a guy, and then the next 6 episodes are women.
Look at you. And good. I like that.
And then Dr. McCutcheon. And then another gaggle of women. And I don't know why. I don't want to give the impression, that this is a female only run world, because it actually isn't.
Well, it is very, there are a lot of women competing for slots, I think, in the musical world. And I think, there are also a lot of men who tend to get some opportunities that women miss out on. So I think it's good that you're extending the opportunities to women.
So do you have any upcoming projects or anything going on right now?
Well, actually, I have quite a few things coming up this spring I'm excited about. I have a German leader recital in February, and let's see, I'm also doing another song recital at the beach, which is going to be fun. And then
which beach?
Sunset Beach, North Carolina. It's beautiful. So I'm excited about that. I get to kind of vacation and work at the same time, which is cool. I'm working toward some performances in Europe in the summer. And I also get to do a little bit of acting and straight plays as well. I'm working with a company called Sweet Tea Shakespeare. So I've got some roles with them this spring. So I'm excited. Lots of different things to do.
There's a lot of stuff. That's fun. It's a
Yeah.
good variety.
Yeah,
too, of
I think
things.
so.
So have you always been singing, or did it start with like lessons in something else? Where did it all begin?
Yeah, actually, I come from a family of professional violinists. So my mom always kind of jokes around, but is actually serious about the fact that as soon as I came home from the hospital after I was born, she sat me in her lap and gave me a little baby violin and had me play. So playing violin was never really a choice for me, although I enjoyed it. So I always say that when I was a teenager, I was really into musicals and musical theater and stuff, loved doing plays. So I always say that starting to take voice lessons was kind of like my teenage rebellion. I stopped violin lessons for a while and then started voice lessons, attended my first opera when I was 15, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And anyway, I'm glad I rebelled as a teenager. Obviously, I was not that bad of a kid if that's the worst thing I did. But
Do you ever get that question of, are you going to make your kids do music? You ever get asked that?
yeah, kind of. And I think about it. I probably will, let's be honest. I think I'll be smart though and put them in piano lessons because everybody, no matter what you play, no matter what you sing, you need to have some piano skills. I think that's so important.
So would you teach them piano, or would you give them off to somebody else?
I can't play. I'm an awful pianist. So that's why I would want them to take piano lessons because I know how important it is. And I wish that I had better piano skills. I don't know. I mean, in an ideal world, my children would be little violin, piano prodigies and maybe sing when they grow up, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I get that question all the time, and I want to say no, and I feel like no. Like, I wouldn't force my kids to do music,
Yeah,
but I think I would strongly encourage them to.
that's a good word. Yeah.
It's like a strong nudge, like, oh, hey, this brand new trumpet's just sitting. Oh, how'd that get here?
Ooh, that's shiny.
It just happened. It just on your bed, man, Santa knew exactly what I wanted you to have for Christmas. But
Yeah,
as long as they're doing something, I think just do something.
yeah.
and love it. Don't just sit around, please. And so were you always, so you were like kind of musical theater, and then you got heavily into opera. And I know, in the time that you and I were in school together, you were in the opera and stuff, which was always quite impressive to me because I just knew you in the office, little 5'3", little Southern drawl, nice girl. And then I go and see Marriage of Figaro and you just belt and kill it. And I'm just like, just never expected it. And so what drew you to start singing opera?
Well, I saw Don Giovanni. My mom was playing in the orchestra. She's a violinist, like I said. But I went to see kind of like a modern day redo of Don Giovanni. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. I was so struck by the power of the voices and the beauty of the music. And I was really drawn to the character of Serlina, and I really kind of imagined myself singing that role one day. And so it just kind of became a goal for me to do that. I still haven't performed all of Serlina, but I've done some of her arias and stuff, and I'm still really drawn to her character. I think she is sassy and strong and kind of, cool that way. So that was my first opera experience. And, I just was kind of drawn to it ever since then.
And so since then, was it, I mean, because you said in high school you were doing musicals, right? So, because a lot of people that they get there and they stop there, there's not typically the desire to jump into opera. A lot of musical people, I don't know is it because of your classical music background in your family that you were like, that's not an intimidating thing? Because I know that's what a lot of people are like. I don't know if I could sing like that with that power and all that kind of stuff.
Well, probably. I'm sure that, I had some early exposure to classical music, so I wasn't intimidated by it. And also, I would sing some musical theater things, and my directors would be like, this isn't an opera, Catherine, because even as a high schooler, I guess I sang with vibrato, which was, and I sang in head voice, I didn't belt.
How dare you?
So I know. So people were like, this isn't an opera. You have to sing in musical theater style. So I kind of had it in my head that maybe I should look into opera. And I actually did the Nats competition my senior year of high school. The Nats, it's National Association of Teachers of Singing. And I competed in the musical theater category and in the classical category. And I actually ended up placing first in classical and not getting anything in musical theater. So I think that kind of nudged me in the direction of studying classical music. It encouraged me to, follow my strengths, I guess.
That's cool. So it kind of, in one way or another, your path was kind of laid out for you.
Yeah.
That's
I think
cool.
so.
But you're still, I'm sure if a musical theater said, hey, come sing, come be with us, I'm sure you wouldn't be like, no.
Oh no, I love musical theater, and I love especially like the golden age musicals, like Carousel and Oklahoma, and all Fiddler on the Roof. Those types of musicals, those are great, and I think it's cool because a lot of opera houses now are actually putting on productions of these golden age musicals because it's supposed to be sung in more of an operatic style, I think.
Yeah, it does seem like the later we go, the less in the more in the mask everything becomes when we start to get away. It's also, look at the orchestra pits as well. There's less full orchestras.
True.
And more. And now we're in the age of like rock bands almost entirely, which it's good and bad. But you're also those books for some of that old stuff, like West Side Story. Gosh, that orchestra book is hard. And then they did a CD with all professional, classically trained singers doing all the West Side Story stuff, and it's crazy how different it is to listen to it that way. But in a good way, in a good different. So what would you say to, like, maybe there's a high schooler out there and they just did Grease and she's like, oh, I'm thinking about doing, opera, but that's really intimidating. What would you say to someone like that who's kind of kept back from those opportunities?
I would say absolutely go for it. I would say look into some Mozart operas. You can find full operas on YouTube and just watch. Just, get into the experience. If you can, go see a live opera. And nowadays, especially, I think opera companies are really trying to make their productions accessible to people, so it's not so hoity-toity, it's not so fancy and frilly and stuffy. It's not that type of art at all. If you go, you'll see that, it's really something that is, accessible, like I said, and it's something that should be pursued. If you have any interest in it at all, why not try?
Yeah, there is an intimidation factor just in the attire of attending one of those things. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember we have the Strass Center here in Tampa, and we did cabaret.
Yeah, I love cabaret.
And so I was in the orchestra pit for that, and we were dressed cabaret. The orchestra is on stage, so we're dressed in character, but like not very much. Like, we're not nearly what the cast is, and the cast, like, they were intermingling with people and they were talking, but they were all, and like all of us were just band kids. So we were all just like intimidated by just by the outfits and like the blatant sexuality of everything. So we would hide in the coffee shop in the stress center. And I remember seeing people in tuxedos one night and just going like, what in the world are they going to? And I thought maybe they were musicians in the Florida Orchestra who are reside in that hall. And they're, oh no, the opera's there. And like a full tux and gown is like, that's what you go see the opera in. And there is this intimidating factor, but that's not how it's supposed to be. I mean, classical music, that's why people are so afraid of it, I think, in a lot of ways, is because we've turned it into this like high society, bite your thumb kind of an idea.
For sure.
That was a Shakespeare reference for you.
Thank you. I liked it. Yeah, good job. So I think it's cool though, because kind of what I was getting at a minute ago was that some opera companies are doing things like pop-up, what do you call it, like flash mob operas, where they'll go to a grocery store and then just start singing a chorus from something. Or they'll go perform in the street, or they'll perform a modern day version, or like an 80s punker version of a Mozart opera or something. So I think they're trying to make it more appealing and more understandable and more relatable to people. And I think that's really cool. And I hope this trend continues because, opera it's so expressive. It has so much to say. We have so much to learn from the stories and from the music. I hope that people can learn to relate if they're initially intimidated by it.
It's societal commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And it always has been. And especially, like, I jokingly told someone who wasn't so happy about the events of yesterday with the inauguration. I told them, I was like, well, one of the cool things about political discourse is art is going to flourish.
Yes.
And boom. And it has always been that way. Probably the best operas, the best symphonies, the best punk rock albums, the best pop songs have always been written when we were unhappy as a society.
So true. Yeah, and I think it goes both ways. I think that art mirrors society, and society, is influenced by what's happening in art. And I mean, adding to what you're saying too, this is a crucial time as artists for us to be supporting other artists, going to see live performances, because, with talk of potentially cutting the endowment of the arts budget, stuff like that. This is kind of a scary time. It could be a big crossroads for artists. So I think we have to band together. We have to support each other. If you love the arts, go support the arts. That's so important.
Please. Yeah, so I'm working on a CD project. And I was talking to the sound engineer, and we were talking about how we could get funds and this and that. We were talking about grants, and he's like, why don't you go ask a bunch of your like orchestra buddies and this and that? And I outwardly said, well, the worst people to sell a CD to are musicians. And it is funny. I think we're some of the worst offenders of the whole supporting the arts thing, which is sad. I try to make it to a show at least once, even and I'm balling on a budget down here, and I try to go to at least one show a quarter every year or so, something like that. So you're doing a lot of stuff now. You're doing some studio teaching. Your schedule and your portfolio right now is Swiss cheese. I mean, you're just doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So what is currently your favorite thing that you're up to right now?
Oh my goodness, that's hard to choose. I mean, with me, I get bored very easily, which is why I need kind of like, I think of it, I like that you called it Swiss cheese. I've never thought of it that way, but I call it my patchwork quilt. Like I kind of sew a little square here, a little square here, like one is performing, one is teaching, one is, Shakespeare, whatever. And that's what makes up what I do on a daily basis. And I like keeping things interesting, doing different things. I have to say, teaching has been so rewarding because I love seeing how music connects with people.
And is this your studio because you have a
That's
little bit
right.
of a private studio, or is it because you also teach like a general music appreciation type class as well?
I do. At a local college, I teach music appreciation and an American music course, which is really cool because I'm teaching both classes on the same day. So I get to talk about Mozart and Johnny Cash in the same day, which is pretty cool. Um, but I also teach in a private studio. I also teach private lessons at a school in Raleigh. So I'm kind of, doing a lot of commuting all over the place, which is fine. I love what I do, so it's worth it. But in both classes, actually, in my private studio, I have students who have been taking lessons for a while, so they're familiar with music. But when they make a breakthrough, they have this light in their eyes. They get so excited. It makes me just so happy. It makes my day. And then similarly, with my music appreciation classes, I have a lot of students who are there for an easy A. They think music is an easy class. They don't read music. They've never had a music course before.
Is it like an elective for non-majors?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So they come in and they don't really know what to expect. But once we start explaining the depths of music, kind of the mathematical parts of it, and then how we go from there to making something so expressive, they really start to get into it, which is exciting. I have students who swear to me that they'll never listen to classical music. They're not classical music fans. And then by the end of the semester, it always makes me so happy to hear like, okay, there's one piece that we listened to in this class that I actually listen to now when I study, which is so cool. That's the most that I could ever hope for. So
like all good classical musicians, you only listen to classical music, right? You don't listen to anything else.
No,
you only listen to Mozart arias and Beethoven symphonies and Brahms piano concertos, right? That's all of it.
Absolutely not. I'm not going to lie to you. No, I listen to all kinds of things. In my free time, I love listening to folk music. I love like indie, alternative rock. I think my students would be a little bit surprised to hear that from me because I'm in lessons, of course, I'm all like Mozart.
Have you checked out the do you have a Spotify account or do you use Spotify regularly?
I do, yeah.
Have you checked out the Spotify? They've got an acoustic covers playlist.
Oh,
pop songs.
I
It's with all those acoustic indie folksy bluegrass groups, but they're doing like EXO or like just any like Beyonce or anything like that. But they're doing it in their style, much like you were talking about. Operas doing a Mozart opera in a Bon Jovi style and stuff like that. Very similar. And so, what would you say? If you're just someone who hasn't really gotten into, I can't tell you the amount of band kids I have, people who are like, yeah, I'm going to major in trombone. And I'm like, cool, who's your favorite trombone artist? And they couldn't tell me. All right, what's your favorite trombone piece? None. When was the last time you listened to professional trombone? Never. And you want to major in this thing? Yes. How are you supposed to know what it sounds? How are you supposed to know what you're supposed to do if you like, I don't know. I'm not a very good basketball player, but I've at least watched enough games where I know the premise of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so where would you, if you're someone who's looking to either broaden their music or anything like that, what do you suggest for your students on how they get started with classical music? Because that's an intimidating factor too. It's like, where do I start? There's so much, and
Yeah, for sure. I always recommend to my students who are not music majors, who are just kind of getting into classical music, I tell them to go on Pandora and type in like something like classical hits or something, like famous classical pieces, and then just listen, and scroll through, find pieces that you like to listen to, pieces, that you don't, that's fine, just kind of figure out what it is that you're looking for. Like I said, there's so many great productions of operas on YouTube. You can just, Google if you have a Saturday off to sit and just watch if you're interested in it. That's a good place to start too.
Yeah, and find your genres too. Find what you like. Like somebody may be super, super interested in specifically like Carmen. They might.
Yeah.
That is the opera that they went to. They know that one, and that's fine. That's great. Get into it, and then okay, what are some ones that are very similar? Because like a Mozart opera is very different from that.
Yes.
And we just hear opera and we think about that. Also, just for the listeners, I've always suggested to my young instrumental students, start with the Fantasia soundtracks.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That's
sure.
a good start, and because that's like the greatest hits of classical music from a bunch of different genres, a bunch of different composers, and like like everybody knows these pieces, just not in their entirety. Mm-hmm. It's like going to a Halloween concert and hearing ba da 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 da, and everybody giggles, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't know the fugue part.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's an excellent point, actually. Fantasia is great for that. And actually, when I play some pieces for my students, they're like, oh, that's on Fantasia. Like they've already seen it when they were kids and they recognize the piece. Or when I talk about Richard Wagner, I always play for them the Bugs Bunny cartoon. Killed a wabbit, killed a wabbit. I always play that for them, and they're like, "Oh, I know this." And I'm like, "Yeah, you didn't know that was opera, though."
Well, I can't tell you how many like high school students like I'm sorry to pick on my trombones, but like, oh yeah, hey, let's work on the Ride of the Valkyrie. Do you know that excerpt? And they're like, no, I've never heard that before. I'm like, that's a lie. You just don't realize you've heard it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in there. And that's why every single time I play, if I'm playing a concert for people who I know don't like, if I go to like a high school just to play and do a master class, I'll play the Bach Cello Suite Prelude 1. Just everybody knows it, and they're like, oh yeah, that was on a car commercial.
Yeah, exactly. I think, pop culture is so great for expanding classical music. I'm sure that there are some classical pieces that you like and connect to and that you've heard that you're not even aware of. Their favorite, my students always like when I say, you guys know Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the first movement? And they're like, what? What is that? That sounds intimidating. But then I play it for them and they hear the da-da-da-da, and they're like, oh, okay. And they automatically feel more connected to the music, which is cool.
Yeah, getting them beyond the point of, too, because like that's a very intimidating title right there, right? Like
exactly.
Beethoven's a number, symphony, and sometimes they'll even put a number behind it, extra number for the when it was written and all that kind of stuff. And we get the question of, why does Bach have so many cello suites that all have these different, and you've got to remind them, well, like a minuet wasn't always it was a dance. It was a thing. It was like, I can tell my Hispanic kids, because I teach down here in Florida, I can go, you know what reggaeton is, right? And they go, yeah. I'm like, that's like that. That's the same thing. And also they were writing for patrons, and they would just be like, hey, I've got a trumpet guy coming in and I need a trumpet concerto, Haydn. And Haydn goes, okay, trumpet concerto number 1. And I just wrote it. And that's why they're titled that. They didn't have time to think of like names for these things. It was just structure, and that's how you knew exactly what was coming up. And also you would only hear the music once maybe in your lifetime.
Yeah for sure,
because there's no recordings. So when do you put a big emphasis on listening to your gen ed class? Or
I do, yeah.
They must love you for that.
Well, I mean, some people are into it and some people aren't, and that's fine. But I just think...
Do you do like drop the needle type
No.
of testing? No. So
No, I don't.
Do they have to remember any of the pieces, or?
Yeah. I ask
Okay.
them to be responsible for, the classical music greatest hits that we talk about in our textbook, But I tell them, my goal isn't to trick you. It's just I want you to be able to identify these pieces. And if someone says something about Beethoven, you know what they're talking about, and you're able to identify some of his music. I mean, that's the most important part to me, I think.
And how did you get into it? Because you've got a bachelor's in performance, and then a master's as well in performance.
Yes.
Both in the same subcategory of performance?
Yes.
Okay.
Vocal performance.
Gotcha. And so how did you get into the community college that you're teaching at?
Well, it's still a goal of mine to have a position as a voice teacher at a university. So I wanted to get collegiate experience, and so I just started applying at different local colleges.
And did you check their listings, or was there like a website that had a bunch of the listings on it, or?
I can't quite remember. I Googled the ones that I knew were close to me in the area and checked their openings, but there was also like a North Carolina community college forum or something if you're looking for jobs, and you can just kind of like put out a general application with your resume and stuff, and then schools contacted me. So yeah, it's pretty neat. I'm not sure how it is for other states, but North Carolina, I know that there's kind of like this big forum for community colleges.
Oh, really cool. And so was this one of the ones that you had applied to and they called, or did they reach out to you, or?
I applied to this one specifically. Yeah. This school is great.
Was there an audition, or was there, what was the interviewing process like?
Well, I sent in all my materials. I sent in recordings, and I sent in my resume and my CV, my website information. So I didn't actually have to sing for them, but I did go in and have a formal interview where we talked, and I had to answer questions about how I would handle situations in classes, like if there was a student who was having trouble, how would I handle that? So it was more of a formal interview. I think in this situation, my recordings and my resume were sufficient. So I didn't end up doing a live audition.
Really cool. And where did you have your recordings uploaded into a certain thing, or did you send it to them?
I had my recordings actually just on YouTube, and then I sent in my website as well that has recordings on it.
That is no joke. I just got offered a spot in a studio in Manchester off of my YouTube recording. So like,
fantastic.
It's a thing. Like, if you have high enough quality recordings, throw them up there, even if it's not on a video.
Yeah. Oh no, I just have a picture of like a performance or like my headshot or something, and then it's just the recording. Social media is so great for musicians, and YouTube is so great.
And are you actively like cultivating your YouTube channel, or are you just kind of throwing it up there for anybody to get a hold of, or?
Not really. I mean, I'm not as into YouTube as maybe, I think it could benefit me to be more into YouTube, but I spend my time on different things. I just kind of throw recordings up there. So if I need to send a video, need to send a recording, it's just a really easy way to say, hey, check me out on YouTube. I just find it's pretty easy, and I'm not that much of a technology whiz. So if I know how to do something, I typically stick with it. And in this case, I know how to upload recordings on YouTube. So I just go with it.
Awesome. So, and for anybody who is interested in doing like college position jobs or anything like that, like it's a weird game to get in, especially like you were saying, like you have a very similar dream to me in terms of being a studio teacher for, your respected instrumentation, I guess we'll call it. And that it's hard when you're young, and it's really hard now with a master's degree to get in as a studio teacher. And having college experience is really smart, even if you're just teaching, like you're doing a gen ed or a theory 1 or oral theory skills or, something like that. Like, don't be afraid of doing those types of things. And don't, a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm a lesser musician if I'm not teaching exactly what I want. No, like,
right.
You got to start somewhere. You got to get going somewhere. And in terms of the job postings, a really good place to check is, what is it, higheredjobs.com?
Yeah, so true.
And you like Catherine could literally put in like soprano and just see what there is going on in the world.
Yep.
And not every college puts on there, but that's a good start at least to see what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was kind of out of necessity as well. I've got to put bread on the table. So, I love my job. I really love what I do. And, honestly, if it has something to do with music, if it has something to do with the arts, I'm open-minded. Obviously I want to have the fulfilling factor of using what I've trained, using my instrument. But I kind of like having different outlets and exploring different things. So I'm not put off by the idea of teaching music appreciation. In fact, I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, I mean, it's been a good experience for me.
And I mean, to your credit too, I mean, you also dabble in some instrument stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, didn't you just get done doing a thing on violin or something like that?
Yeah, I do perform time to time as a violinist.
So your mom's just sitting back laughing right now, just like, I told her she should have.
Yeah, pretty much. The thing is, violin is great, and I've appreciated it more now that I've kind of distanced myself, so I'm not like forced to play violin or whatever. So I do enjoy playing violin, and I also am trying to teach myself mandolin and ukulele. So I like, the stringed instruments. It's funny because I always told my mom, I was like, I will never marry a string musician because I'll never get away from it. And it turns out I'm engaged to a violist.
I was about to say. Yeah, that was a funny happening too. That is a romantic story that would make all the girls jealous. Oh yeah, I just went off to a foreign country to sing in an opera, and I fell in love with the boy who was playing viola in the pit orchestra, and it's been that way ever since. Like, shut up. Like,
I mean, honestly, I couldn't have dreamt that up for myself either. I mean,
that is a Disney story right there. Yeah. So why do the string stuff? I mean, was it just part of the gig and you said, sure, I'll do it? Or did you want to get back involved in it, or a combination of all the things?
Yeah, I kind of like to challenge myself. Like I said, I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to my job. I've always had this idea that, like, I don't want to confine myself to one aspect. Like, I don't, some people have this goal of just being able to support themselves by doing one thing, whether that's performing in their specific primary instrument, or if that's teaching, or doing research, whatever. But I've just kind of always had this plan for myself that I want to just have as much experience in different things as I can. I just have a lot of interests, and I don't want to shut any out. Like I said, I kind of grew to love violin more and more as I got older, and it makes me happy. It's fun, and I'm not, as a musician, it's not like we're rich people, so I'm not really in a position to turn down gigs if they show up and if I'm available. So, I take gigs here and there wherever opportunities arise.
And let me see. But yeah, one of the cool things about being a freelance is you get to pick and choose, and you're your own boss, and you get to set up all of your everything, right? And you don't get bored, and you're not doing a monotonous thing. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it leaves a lot of room for flexibility, and also, especially with my studio, there's some flexibility in that if I have performances, I can say, okay, let's move our lesson to this day, or, we can reschedule or something. So that's nice. I mean, I like having that flexibility. For sure. Sometimes I think, like, gosh, it would be nice to, get started on my 401k and all that. But, I'm in my mid-20s, so I feel like there's a little bit of time for that. And right now I'm really enjoying what I do. So
and this is mostly for the listeners, but there are 401k and Roth IRA options when you're not working for a company that you don't have to throw a heck of a lot of money, like
true. Mm-hmm.
$100 a month or whatever you got. Just throw it out there and just save however you can and check all that kind of stuff out. Do it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working for if you're planning to work for yourself as a performer and you're not, I mean, newsflash, but if you're playing clarinet right now and you're a grad school or something like that, you're not instantly, just because you're the best clarinet player in your school, you're not instantly going to be the principal chair clarinet of the Philadelphia Orchestra. Like, it doesn't work out that way. So you might have to do some performing on your own for a few years, and so some things there are a lot of options that you can take to give you those comforts and those quote unquote benefits of a full-time job without actually having to have the full-time job, quote unquote. And it scares people, but I mean, look at society in general now. I feel like it is more becoming contracted and freelance work, not just in music, but in general. I think our generation is a lot more afraid of sitting in a place for 40 years, 9 to 5, retiring and dying. And
yeah.
I think we're really scared of that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Mozart was a freelance musician, and if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. So we can make it work.
We put him on a pedestal, but we have to remember, like, I mean, the guy wrote poop jokes in his music. Like,
I love him. I love him so much.
So when it comes to working for working with the companies, and like you're working with, what was it called? Sweet Tea?
Mm-hmm. Sweet Tea Shakespeare.
And this is in Carolina?
Yes.
Oh, that's adorable. So when do they contact you? Do you go and audition for them? Are there contractors? How does getting that kind of work out?
Yeah, I actually went and auditioned. I had a friend who was involved with them who had done some shows with them. And so I just went one day and auditioned, and I really loved their setup because they always add music into the shows. So they do classical Shakespeare. They also do these fun events as well. They call it their Lit series. So basically it's drunk Shakespeare almost, in that it's classical Shakespeare, but there's improv involved. We play drinking games with the audience. So it's just a really fun night. And there's, jokes, and we do silly things, but we also incorporate music into the show. So I have played violin and I've sung for them in the band. So that's fun.
And is the improv, is it like comedic improv, like Whose Line Is It Anyway, or is it like jazz improv? Or yes?
Yes. It's basically, how can we make this situation modern or funnier, or highlight the joke that Shakespeare intended? Because we have to remember that Shakespeare, just like Mozart, was a little bit crass for his time. We think of Shakespeare and Mozart as being hoity-toity sometimes, but neither of them were. They were both, they both had their jokes, their kind of dirty jokes that they like to incorporate in their stuff. Artists
are vulgar.
Yeah.
Like, if you haven't figured this out, like, there's probably some middle school band kid listening to this right now just being like, I don't know, my band director seems like she's just such a nice... She goes home and drops every single 4-letter word you could imagine. I mean, not Catherine, but most of them do.
Just, yeah, my students listening, vulgar. I don't do that.
No, but artists are... I mean, they're a very eclectic bunch in many different ways, and it's not to hide who you are, but I mean, it's fun. I mean, you just there's so many ways to be yourself, and music allows you to express who you are sometimes when society doesn't let you do it.
Yes, I agree.
You sit down, you perform, you go through the music, and even though I'm in a suit and, everything's all stuffy and I'm trying to give a nice presentation and be articulate, I can be funny or aggressive or whatever through the horn. And that's one of the cool things about it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But it seems like what you're doing with Sweet Tea just kind of lets you just be, essentially, just art.
Yeah, I feel like really helps develop my skills to help me just be more expressive in my music as well. Acting is such a powerful way of tapping into, you're given a script, you're told what to say, so you have to bring it to life. You have to be expressive. And it's the same with music. We're given the notes on the page, so it's our job to bring it to life and make it expressive. So in a way, we have to find how that taps into our own personalities and how we can make an audience connect with that. So it's important. It's all about expression. It's all about personality. It's never just stuffy, in my opinion.
So with the way that you've been getting work and kind of, picking up here and there, and I'm sure a lot of it is reputation based, because I mean, if you guys haven't heard her sing, I mean, it's fantastic, and good quality content along with, a solid attitude, as you can tell here, and I'm sure she's punctual and all that kind of stuff. So what would you say to anybody who's, trying to pick up or interested in, where do you start if you're in high school and you're in the chorus program or something like that? What is a path that you would say, this is a good one, or try these things out? I mean, I know there's no one given path for anybody, but
yeah, that's an interesting question, because you really just have to cast a wide net. If you can stay open-minded, do that. I think a lot of people kind of narrow into, they put themselves in categories like, oh, I'm a choral singer, or I'm a solo singer. I only sing classical music. If you can expand your horizons a little bit, I would encourage you to do so. Cast a wide net, do auditions here and there. For a high schooler who might be interested in performing as a soloist, community theaters are a great thing. There's a lot of art and an ability to explore in community theater. So I would encourage you to go and audition. And, if you don't get the lead role immediately, at least you've shown them what you can do. And, you go in the next time and maybe you get an even bigger role, and, you just kind of grow that way. And if you can show people that you are not only talented, but that you're also good to work with, that you're a nice person, that you're a good colleague, that you support the people that you work with, that goes a long way as well.
Yeah, and what I like most about your answer is, you didn't say, oh, well, you need to go and get this bachelor's degree and study with these people, and then you need to get a master's. There's no other way. It was, I mean, in a way, it's just go out, perform, do the thing.
Yeah.
Open yourself up. And also, I like the variety that you're talking about with, just do as much as possible. Be as marketable as possible.
Yes.
I mean, when you fill out any stereotypical office job position, they go, do you have skills with Microsoft Office, which is a gathering of software, not just Microsoft Word. And so if you only know Microsoft Word really, really, really well, you're not as marketable as somebody who knows Excel and PowerPoint and all those types of things. So it's,
yeah.
I mean, we're now in the world, a trumpet player can't just say, I want to be a orchestra trumpet player. I want to be a jazz trumpet player. You've got to be able to do both, man. Pick up the axe and play.
Yep. It's about being open-minded for sure.
And do you have any other advice for people just kind of coming up in music and things to look out for, anything like that?
A career in music is great, because at the end of the day, we do get to do what we love. There are going to be people along the way who discourage you, who, are critical. And that can be used to your advantage. It helps to make you stronger. It helps you to make you more confident in what you do. Just know that everybody gets the criticism. Everybody gets the discouragement. That's just part of the game. So don't be turned off by that. Just keep doing what you do. And actually, I was watching an interview with mezzo-soprano Joyce DiDonato. She's wonderful. I love her. And she was saying, if you don't have a need to be a musician, if you don't have a need to do this job, then it's going to be too hard and you're going to end up doing something else, basically. Because it's such a challenge, because there's so much feedback from people, and not all of it is positive. In fact, you'll get a lot of negativity, especially if you do 20 auditions and end up with one gig, that can be a little discouraging. But that's pretty much the standard. You have to just kind of put yourself out there and allow yourself to be vulnerable, and you have to have a need to do it. You have to have that drive. So that's very important.
Yeah, it's not all the people who get only praise are not the people who you think. Like we kind of think of like, oh, that one kid in class who's only getting A's and only getting, hey, you're doing a good job and all that kind of stuff. Those are the only people who can make a career out of it. But man, the top people, they went through years and years of,
yes,
and they just and they still do. Go onto like a Pavarotti video, and there are people who are like, well, I don't think he's breathing correctly.
It's so true. Yeah. I mean, no matter what you do, it's, somebody's going to find something. So, I mean, actually one quote that I love, and I remind myself this all the time, it's not your job to sit there and say, am I good enough? It's your job to make the art. And there's going to be people who tell you, okay, yeah, it's not good enough. But then there's going to be people who say, like, I'm really touched by what you do, and I'm touched by the fact that you love what you do. And those comments, we shouldn't care what people say regardless, but those comments do feel really good, and at the end of the day makes us remember why we do what we do.
Awesome. And do you have anything for younger people that they can get their hands on that would help them along, that was inspirational for you?
Yes, absolutely. For young singers, I would definitely recommend checking out Renee Fleming's book. It's called The Inner Voice, I believe. Yeah, that's a fantastic book. And actually, she is very candid about her struggles. She talks about her weaknesses as a singer. And she also gives advice to young singers. She's just she's such a kind person, and just, not diva-ish at all. She just makes singing, she's just very honest and open and vulnerable. She makes singing really feel like it's, it's personal to her.
That seems like a good book for anybody.
Yeah, definitely read it. I always recommend that book.
That's what I love and hate about doing this question that I always give, hey, give me, these things, because then I'm like, oh, I'm going to go check all these things out. So now I have a stack of books just waiting to be read. You got anything else?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of some like spectacular advice. I don't really have anything. Just, work hard, be nice. That's it.
the old Mr. Feeney, do good.
Yeah, do good. I like that. That's good.
All right. Hey, well, thank you so much for coming on today and
Thank
chatting
you for asking
or this
me.
morning.
Yeah.
Having morning coffee with me in a way. Well, you had
water.
Water.
This was fun.
And,
always water.
So if you guys haven't, I'm going to give every single link in order to check out Catherine and all the things that she's doing, as well as the Renee Fleming book that she mentioned earlier. Thank you very much for coming and listening to the Young Musicians Guide podcast. I am your host, Aaron Campbell. Today we were joined by catherinebkelly. And again, thank you. Be happy, but never satisfied.
I'd never grow tall as this fence. Time dragged heavy and slow, but April came and August went before I knew just what they meant. And little by little I grew. was plenty for me. But I walked down the road one day, and just what happened I can't say. But little by little it came to me, that line between the earth and sky came beckoning to me. Now the time has grown so short, the world has grown so wide. I'll be graduated soon. Why am I strange inside? What makes me think I'd like to try to go down all those roads beyond that line above the earth and neath the sky? Tomorrow when I sit upon the graduation platform stand, I know my hand will shake when I reach out to take that page